Good morning. We're going to start now. Members will take their seat, and all the guests and visitors retire behind the rail. We will get started. Thank you. Thank you. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Pastor Christian Winters of Master Builders Church. He is here today as the guest of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. I would ask all members and guests and visitors to please rise.
Father, we thank you so much for this day. Lord, we thank you for the brilliant minds that are in this room. And we pray today, God, you would give them innovation. You would give their minds great thought, God, that comes from beyond this world. I pray that you would lift us all above the stress that comes with making decisions and cause us to make decisions with peace, joy, and happiness. Then I pray ultimately, God, we would have the common thread of togetherness, unity. Lord, that all minds and all voices, all races would be represented, God, in these decisions. I thank you again for the minds that are in this room. And I pray, God, we would give those minds to you. Let us think thoughts that are above our norm. Let us think thoughts that we didn't even know we had. That these brilliant minds can make changes in this city. That power is in their hands and peace is in their hearts. I thank you for this day, for their great authority. I pray they would use it for your glory and for the power of the people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for those inspiring words. Council will be at ease. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, September 8th, 2016, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, September 8th, 2016 be approved.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, September 8th, 2016 stand approved. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and the journal is approved. The next order of business is a request for leaves of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the majority, there are no requests of leave of absence today.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Republicans, there are no requests for leave of absence.
Chair thanks the gentleman. At this time, I would like to dispense with the regular order of business, and I would like to welcome, and I really want to thank everyone who has taken time out of their busy day to come down to witness your government in action. I hope that your day here is a pleasurable one and a knowledgeable one. And I hope you enjoy it so much that you come back again. So again, thank you so much for being here today. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez, who will present a resolution recognizing Luis Figueroa. With Mr. Figueroa and those accompanying him, please join the Councilwoman at the podium. And joining Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez, we have Councilman Johnson and Councilman O.
Good morning, colleagues. It is only fitting as President Obama does his annual recognition of the commencement of Hispanic Month, September 15th through October 16th, that we would be here. We would kick it off by recognizing an amazing individual who is doing amazing things, not just because he's a young Puerto Rican male, not just because he's very humble, not just because he grew up in the Hunting Park section that I also grew up with, not just because he's from Philadelphia, not just because he's blessed with a wonderful voice, but because he is an ambassador for the city of Philadelphia. And I'm very proud to introduce to some of you a young man that will continue to put Philadelphia on the map, because he's going to do fabulous things. For those of you who don't know him, he has been a singing sensation for many years, and he is a product of Philadelphia Public Schools and the GAMP program. So we're extremely, extremely proud to have Luisito Figueroa on an international stage, proud of his Philadelphian roots, proud of his Puerto Rican roots, and he is joined here by his mother, and when we finish the presentation, he can speak to how Philadelphia has shaped him, and for us to recognize him today and thank him for the ambassador role that he takes for Philadelphia, for me is really an honor. Had an opportunity to catch up with him. I know him since he was very young. He is off in a couple of months to film the Latino version of Empire, another Philadelphia-based show. He's going to be filming in Mexico, and he has an incredible role to play in that series, and his mother's worried about him being in Mexico, and I'm saying, hey, he's on a national, international stage, and we're very proud of him, and we look forward to the series coming out. It'll be sponsored by Telemundo, so we know that it's going to take him to a total other level. So I'm very, very, very proud, because he is an amazing and humble young man, and I think at a time when our men are looking for mentors and people to look up to, this is one of those men. God-fearing, very good Puerto Rican values, so I'm very, very proud of him. So recognizing, congratulating, and honoring Luis Figueroa on being named the 2016 Premios Juventud winner. Whereas Luis Figueroa, born in Philadelphia, to musically talented Puerto Rican parents, is a singer-songwriter, YouTube sensation with over 3.2 million views. You can look him up. All-around entertainer, and whereas at age 4, Luis began his artistic journey performing in schools, churches, at various events around the country, capturing the attention of audiences and leaving them in awe for his very performance. Always had an incredible stage presence.
Whereas Luis' musical career first sprouted when he performed at the International Latin Music Hall of Fame in New York, alongside major Latin singers like Johnny Albino, Joe Cuba, and Grosilla. Luis was later selected to perform on the international recognized evening show Sábado Gigante, hosted by Don Francisco. And whereas in 2003, Luis sang on the widely viewed television program Star Search, alongside contestant David Archuleta, and made it to the finals. In July 2005, he held the title of Teen Idol in Philadelphia Lights of Liberty show. And whereas, after performing with salsa pioneer Johnny Rivera, an opportunity rose for Luis to sing on a salsa album titled Transito, produced by Mark Anthony and Angel Fernandez, with famous salsa artists including Ray Sepulveda, Tito Allen, and Johnny Rivera. Figueroa performed Esta Carbadilla on the album and
Whereas in 2007, Luis was a top 40 finalist on American Idol. Luis graduated from the Girard Academic Music Program and went on to further his musical career at Berklee College of Music in Boston, where he was selected each year out of hundreds of students to perform in Berkeley's Singer Showcase, the biggest vocal show at the college. And whereas this year, Figueroa received the Premios Juventud Award for his cover of Flor Pálida, which he later performed at the award show alongside Mark Anthony. And whereas Luis Figueroa has recently been signed with Mark Anthony's entertainment company, Magnus Media, for an exclusive production deal. Luis has been a role model and an inspiration for the Latino community throughout the city of Philadelphia and nationwide due to his tremendous accomplishments. Therefore be it.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia, we hereby recognize, congratulate, honor, and thank Luis on being named the 2016 Premios Juventud winner, and we further resolve that a copy of this resolution is presented to him as sincere evidence of our respect and admiration of this legislative body. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Mr. Figueroa for remarks.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
And thank you. Speechless to be back in Philadelphia after so many years of living in Los Angeles and traveling the world. It's been a whirlwind of a year for me, and to be recognized by my city is one of the things that I've never really imagined. So thank you guys for being here this morning. Thank you for sharing this award with me, this resolution, and this one's for the city.
Councilor Biddies. Thank you very much. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilman Domb, who will present a resolution honoring Lolly Galvin. Would Ms. Galvin and those accompanying her please join the councilman at the podium? And joining Councilman Domb, we have Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilwoman Gim, and Councilman Heenan.
Today, we're honoring and recognizing Lolly Galvin and the Philly Street Cuts Project which offers free haircuts to people experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia.
Whereas Lolly Galvin is the founder of the Dignity Project, through which she raised $14,000 to travel to 14 U.S. cities with friend Nicole Lepera to deliver, quote, dignity bags, end of quote, filled with toiletries and necessities for the homeless. And whereas now back in Philadelphia, Ms. Galvin wanted to help people on her own streets and has teamed up with local hairstylists M. Breslin, Alicia Laugery, Dana DiGiuseppe, and Jennifer Louise to offer free haircuts to people experiencing homelessness and to help them transform these individuals right where they are located. And
whereas the idea for Philly Street Cuts resulted from the discovery of Mark Bustos, a hairstylist who provided haircuts in New York's homeless population, and whereas the Philly Street Cuts project has generated such a positive buzz around the city that Ms. Galvin has been contacted by enough stylists offering their services that haircuts could be given 24 hours a day, and whereas Ms. Galvin uses the hashtag Philly Street Cuts to help spread the word of the project and uses before and after photos to show the positive impact that the haircuts are making for each individual. And
whereas the whole thing is simple, but that's what people overlook, Ms. Galvin said. It's a silent statement of what you could do for a stranger. I want people to see the demonstration of humanity. Now, therefore, be it resolved. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Philadelphia hereby honors and recognizes Lolly Galvin and the Philadelphia Street Cuts Project, which offers free haircuts to people experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia.
I just want to say, though, for the record, for myself, when I get a haircut, it's like 1/3 the normal price because I don't have that much hair. We'd like to present you with this resolution.
Chair recognizes Ms. Galvin for remarks.
thank you.
Ms. Galvin?
Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I want to thank the people on stage with me who are very selfless and go out with me and do this and are dedicated, and we're staying in Philadelphia to give, so thank all of you.
Thank you. Councilman Biddies. Thank you. The next order of business, the chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages from the mayor to the chief clerk. Thank you. Mr. Decker, would you please read those messages?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am pleased to advise you that on September 9, 2016, I signed the following bill, which was passed by Council at its session on September 8, 2016, Bill Number 160610. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 246 by striking from the City Plan and vacating the legally open portion of Saybrook Street from 45th Street to Melville Street and striking from the City Plan 45th Street from Woodland Avenue to Linemore Street. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 327 by striking from the City Plan Herschel Road from Peyton Street to Priestley Street. And an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to acquire fee simple title or lesser interests such as an easement by purchase, condemnation, or otherwise, in parcels of land along the Delaware River and the Delaware River Trail connecting to Penn Treaty Park. And an ordinance authorizing the bond committee to sell bonds at public or private negotiated sale to provide funds toward various capital municipal purposes, providing for appropriations to the sinking fund commission for the payment of such bonds, authorizing agreements to provide credit or payment of liquidity sources for the bonds in connection with issuance of the bonds, and certain other actions. And an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Realty Transfer Tax by closing certain loopholes, including by amending the definition of value as it relates to acquired real estate companies, the definitions of real estate company and acquired real estate company. And an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to accept an assignment of an easement agreement pertaining to property along the Delaware River bounded by North Delaware Avenue, Penn Treaty Park, the Delaware River, and Shakamaxon Street extended to the Delaware River, commonly known as 1143 through 51 Delaware Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Those messages will be printed in today's journal. Do you have any additional communications?
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And the next order of business is introduction of bills and resolutions, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown.
Good morning, Mr. President. I offer one resolution this morning.
Thank you.
A privilege resolution recognizing National Drive Electric Week 2016 in the City of Philadelphia.
And that resolution will be on today's final passage calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one bill today.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thanks.
An ordinance authorizing the bond committee to sell bonds at public or private negotiated sale to provide funds toward various capital municipal purposes, providing for appropriations to the sinking fund commission for the payment of such bonds, authorizing agreements to provide credit or payment of liquidity sources for the bonds in connection with issuance of the bonds, and certain other actions.
That bill will be referred to committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. I have two bills, one on your behalf, a resolution, a non-privileged resolution co-introduced by Councilman Domb and Councilman Taubenberger, and I would ask that the rules be suspended as to be permitted to vote on that in today's council session.
Can I get a second?
Second.
You want to do it later? After you read. Sorry.
An ordinance amending Subcode A of Title IV of the Philadelphia Code entitled the Philadelphia Administrative Code by amending Chapter 3 entitled Permits by requiring a waste collection plan for the construction, demolition, and alterations.
For the committee.
And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 197 by striking from the City Plan Balfour Street from Ontario Street to Russell Street.
For the committee.
And a non-privileged resolution calling on the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to amend the Act of November 10, 1999, known as the Pennsylvania Construction Code Act, to exempt cities of the first class and further allow for cities of the first class to adopt their own construction codes.
Chair now recognizes Councilman Heenan for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I ask that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the voting on the non-privileged resolution in today's council session.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution will be on today's final passage calendar. Chair now recognizes Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. I have four resolutions. One I'd like to speak about. Co-introduced by Green, Gim, and Greenlee.
Thank you, Councilman.
I had to think about it.
Councilman, would you like to speak on that at the
yeah.
time of the vote?
Well,
you want to do it at the time of we call up for a vote?
let's do it when I call for a vote. We'll wait.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution authorizing the Philadelphia City Council Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings examining the life-threatening dangers of synthetic cannabinoids, synthetic opioids, and other designer drugs.
And that resolution will be on today's final passes calendar.
And a privilege resolution proclaiming and designating the day of October 5, 2016 as Men Can Prevent Domestic Violence Day.
That will also be in today's final passes calendar.
And a privilege resolution hereby declaring the week of September 25 through October 1st, Philadelphia Legacy Week.
And that will be on today's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution declaring the city of Philadelphia to a bee-friendly city that supports all of our numerous bee species.
And that resolution will be on next week's final passes calendar. And the chair now recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Council President, I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I have 3 privileged resolutions and 1 non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A privilege resolution recognizing, congratulating, and honoring the outstanding career of Eddie the Underground King Alvarez on being named the new UFC lightweight champion.
And that will be on this week's final passes calendar.
And a privilege resolution recognizing and honoring the 206th anniversary of Mexico's Independence Day.
This week's final passes calendar.
And a privilege resolution declaring September 15, 2016 through October 15, 2016 as Hispanic Heritage Month to honor the role that Hispanics have played and continue to play in the economic, cultural, and social development of our nation.
This week's final passes calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to service city on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situate in the 19th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that will be on next week's final passes calendar. The chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I have 1 privileged resolution. However, this time I would like to also take the opportunity to recognize students from Professor Nancy Nauer's spring seminar on law and public policy from the outstanding, phenomenal University on Broad Street, Temple Law School, which I'm also an alumnus, so they could be acknowledged and recognized.
Thank you. Please stay. Okay.
A privilege resolution authorizing the Committee on Law and Government to hold hearings regarding the Philadelphia 2035 Comprehensive Plan.
That will be on this week's final passes calendar. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 bills.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Madary Avenue between North 6th Street and North 8th Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Pickering Avenue from East Mount Pleasant Avenue to East Phil Elena Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of East Vernon Road from Michener Avenue to West Cheltenham Avenue.
Those 3 bills just read by the Chief Clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Domb.
Good morning. Thank you, Council President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gimm.
Good morning, Mr. President. No bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. I have no bills nor resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer 1 bill.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 327 by striking from the City Plan Herschel Road from Peyton Street to Priestley Street.
That bill will be referred to the appropriate committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer 12 bills and one non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to accept an assignment of an easement agreement pertaining to property along the Delaware River bounded by North Delaware Avenue, Penn Treaty Park, the Delaware River, and Shakamaxon Street, extended to the Delaware River, commonly known as 1143 through 51 Delaware Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire fee simple title to or a lesser interest, such as an easement by purchase, condemnation, or otherwise, in parcels of land along the Delaware River and the Delaware River Trail connecting to Penn Treaty Park. And an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land within an area bounded by Front Street, Oregon Avenue, 10th Street, and the Schuylkill Expressway, I-76. And an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Cambria Street from Cedar Street to Aramingo Avenue, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Cambria Street from Aramingo Avenue to Memphis Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Ann Street from Aramingo Avenue to Memphis Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Ann Street from Gall Street to Cedar Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Ann Street from Cedar Street to Aramingo Avenue. And an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Cedar Street from Ann Street to Clearfield Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Cedar Street from Cambria Street to Ann Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Aramingo Avenue from Cambria Street to Ann Street, and an ordinance establishing a no-truck parking regulation on both sides of Aramingo Avenue from Ann Street to Clearfield Street.
Those 12 bills just read by the Chief Clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fees, simple title to certain sitting on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements are on, situated in the 39th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that resolution will be on next week's final passage calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer two resolutions, one co-sponsored by Councilman Green and the other co-sponsored by Councilman Domb.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A privileged resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold hearings concerning the adequacy, safety, and consistency of SEPTA's CCT system, which provides paratransit services to individuals with disabilities and senior citizens.
This week's final passage calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution acknowledging the efforts of the Philadelphia Health Department and Board of Health to reduce the high rate of smoking in low-income neighborhoods.
And that will be on next week's final passage calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I offer no bills or resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions. Our next order of business will be reports from committee, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell for a report from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Finance reports out one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Finance, which is referred Bill Number 160708, entitled An Ordinance Amending Chapter 193200 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Keystone Opportunity Zone, Economic Development District, and Strategic Development Area, by providing for additional Keystone Opportunity Expansion Zones. Respectfully reports that it is considered and amended the same, and returns the attached bill to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. The chair again recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of Bill Number 160708.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 160708. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. This bill will be on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our reports from committee, and the next order of business is consideration of calendar. I note that the bill just reported from committee with suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading. This bill will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at the next session of council. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell at this time for a motion regarding bills number 160-708.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit an amendment to be offered regarding bill number 160-708 at this time.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. And again, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer an amendment to bill number 160-708, which has already been circulated to all members of council. I move for the adoption of the amendment and ask to be recognized on it.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of Councilwoman, you want to?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. This is KOZ zone, very, very difficult matter this morning. All of us, I don't know anybody who doesn't want development in their district or in their city. I don't know anyone who doesn't want a KOZ, a Keystone Opportunity Zone consideration for all that it implies city and state in our district. However, I'm asking to amend this for certain bills today so that we don't hold up all the legislation next week because of the fact I'm grateful to represent, Mr. President, my district. We have a lot of development going on, but you know, experience is the best teacher. We're told, we haven't seen it, but we're told all of a sudden today, because I've been working on this all morning, calling around on it, that there is inclusion in numbers with regard to Wexford and certainly Drexel University. We have found, however, many of you were here 2 years ago when we did University City High School and we tore it down, and at the same time we did a hotel at 33rd and Chestnut. Well, the record shows 2 years later that they didn't do inclusion on 33rd and Chestnut, and I am afraid to take the chance to not have inclusion on these major projects. And I also want all my institutions to know, no matter how much I love them, we have to make sure that people in our area are not gentrified and that they feel they have a chance for jobs on all of these major projects that exist. And so therefore, we want to amend this. I understand that this may be held up, and I understand that next spring they'd get another chance, so hopefully we won't hurt them. But I want all my institutions to know we're serious about inclusion. We are serious about people in our area working on these jobs, and we want to send that message that this is the day, this is the time, and we're there. So I move for its adoption.
Councilwoman
Second.
Reynolds Brown, did you also?
Capital letters underscored with exclamation points, all that Councilwoman Blackwell has said.
Thank you, Councilwoman. There has been a motion and a second on said amendment. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and bill number 160-708 has been amended. Bill number 160-708 as amended will be placed on our final passage calendar at the next session of council. Mr. Decker, you're welcome. Mr. Decker, please read any other bills on the first reading of the calendar today.
Bill number 160-612, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a Neighborhood Improvement District consisting of a parcel located on the northeast corner of 15th and Chestnut Street, commonly known as 1441 Chestnut Street, to be known as the Headquarter Hotel Neighborhood Improvement District, designating Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development to serve as the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association for the district, approving a plan for the district, including a list of proposed amendments and their estimated cost, and providing for special financing assessments to be levied on property owners within the district. And Bill number 160-686, entitled An Ordinance Establishing a Neighborhood Improvement District to be known as the South 9th Street Area Business District in an area that generally includes properties located on portions of South 8th Street, South 9th Street, South 10th Street, Christian Street, Montrose Street, Carpenter Street, Washington Avenue, Ellsworth Street, East Passyunk Avenue, and certain other streets within an area depicted on the preliminary plan, and including curb market stands located along certain of those streets. designating South 9th Street Area Business District, a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation, as the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association for the district, approving a plan for the district, including a list of proposed improvements and their estimated cost, and providing for assessment fees to be levied on property owners within the district.
The Chair agrees. These bills will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. Chair now recognizes Councilman Heenan for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the second reading and final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up for the second reading and final passage calendars today. Bill numbers 160417, 160623, 160728, 160729, 160731, 160743, 160744, 160747, 160748, 160525A, 160015A, 160277, 160465, 160466, and 160681. All other resolutions and bills are being held.
Thank you, Councilman.
I think that's a thing. He was hard to hear. It was hard to hear, but I think...
Mr. President, I'd like to make a correction on the record. 160-330 is not being called up. It is being amended by the sponsor of the bill today.
Thank you, Councilman. Before considering these resolutions and bills on the final passage calendar today, we will have our public comment session. It will go as follows. If you are interested in testifying on a bill or resolution on the final passage calendar today, if you have not already done so, I'd ask that you please sign up at the table to my left. When your name is called, you will go to the podium in the middle of the council chambers. There's a device on that table. When the light turns green, it will be your time to speak. When the light turns yellow, you will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. And when the light turns red, we'd ask that you please adhere to the guidelines and conclude your remarks. You will be given 3 minutes to testify. Mr. Decker, please call the first name on the witness list.
Reverend Walter Barnes. Commenting on 160747.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, and to all the members of City Council. As stated, my name is Reverend Walter Barnes. I'm an associate minister at the Triumph Baptist Church. And let me pause for a second to extend greeting unto all of you the way and the manner that we do it at the Triumph Baptist Church. And we do it by saying victory. I am here today to speak on behalf of our congregation. This year marks a milestone for our pastor, Pastor James S. Hall, Jr. And we're celebrating him for having preached for 65 years, having been pastoring for 64 years, and pastoring the Triumph Baptist Church for 47 years. Many of you know that Reverend Dr. James S. Hall, Jr. is a senior pastor in this city. He's also regarded as an elder statesman throughout our nation. And in his own right, he is a legend. And so we, the members of the Triumph Baptist Church, we feel that he deserves recognition in a visible, highly and memorable way that acknowledges and rewards him for his services across the years that he has rendered in the Nicetown, Tioga community, and the city of Philadelphia at large. And for those reasons, we ask all of you for your unanimous support on this resolution. I'd also like to thank Councilwoman Sidney Bass for having introduced this resolution. Thank you very much for this time, and God bless you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Bob Bungo. Commenting on 160-659 and 160-365.
Morning, sir.
My name's Bob Burge. I support Mr. and Mrs. Gay, Jim's audit. We need to audit all our departments, and it's a good start. We're starting with the the parking, but we need to do that to all our departments. And I commend the councilman doing that. The other bill that I'm going to talk about is the one that we need to really address, because our neighborhoods are getting trashed. We need to put some new laws into effect about getting this garbage and these abandoned houses taken care of. Our neighborhoods deserve more things. We need to get these property owners to take care of their properties. And the city council has to start there to get these out-of-state people that own these properties. There's a lot of out-of-state people own these properties, and they just don't care about them. And I like the commercial that Stop Trashing Philadelphia. And that's just not just the property owners, that's the people on the streets. There's a lot of streets in the city of Philadelphia, and you wouldn't believe it, up in Northeast, where I'm residing right now, there's a lot of trash on the streets. People don't care. We need to start caring about our neighborhoods and our streets and start making the city a part of caring about our city and how we affect be part of the solution, not the problem, and stop trashing Philadelphia.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Bob Praviti, commenting on 160-744.
Morning.
Good morning, Council President. My name is Bob Praviti. I'm with the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. For the last year and a half, I've been working with the Bicycle Coalition on Vision Zero, a concept to try to reduce the number of crashes in the city. We've been working closely with the administration, and towards that effort, we have been lobbying in Harrisburg with Shannabelle Latham Morris. Her son tragically died this past April in a crash on Market Street. She wanted to lobby for some legislative change. We did that. We lobbied for the red light extension for the cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard, but Roosevelt Boulevard needs a little bit more. We've been working with AAA, and we've held a forum with the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety. Roosevelt Boulevard, in the last 5 years, according to PennDOT, has 3,000 crashes, nearly 3,800 people injured, and 51 fatalities. It's a roadway that needs more help, and there is technology out there to help it. We've been working very closely, and I thank Councilman Al Tautenberger and Representative John Taylor, who is having a hearing here in this room tomorrow at 10 o'clock. You're all invited. We are going to try to get speed cameras for the Roosevelt Boulevard and finally try to set a new tone for that roadway. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Joe Danahill, commenting on 160-623 and 160-731.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here again. Ignorance is not bliss. Deplorable is how the people, your boss, are being treated by their employees, which are you. As the people's chauffeur, you did not, nor will you ever own the people's car. In this representative form of government, you, in council, must vote the people's will, and if asked, must produce evidence to back up the way you vote. Accountability and transparency are paramount. Deplorable is the attitude that the government agents and agencies know better and fail to listen to the sovereign people. possibly criminal is your inaction after being duly informed multitudes of times of possible violations of 42 U.S.C. 1982, 1983, 1985, 1986, Fourth and Fifth Amendments of the Constitution, and others unnamed. Your stone-cold silence makes one want to provide hearing aids so that you can hear the people's cries. After 1038 West Wyoming was taken without compensation, possibly stolen, then no trial was allowed, lack of due process. Transferred by the sheriff at the request of the Redevelopment Authority of Philadelphia, all without proper notice served. Your response should be to audit, stop doing business with any and all agencies until such time as they can demonstrate that no laws were violated. No home, no payment, no jury trial is egregious. Your continued behavior of avoidance is very egregious. Shut the RDA, the sheriff, and the law departments down until a proper investigation has been commenced.
Thank you for your testimony.
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public comment session. We will now move forward with our calendar. And Mr. Decker, I'd ask that you please read the title to 160417.
A resolution approving the appointment of Fran McLaughlin as a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Philadelphia Housing Authority.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf, I move that this resolution number 160417 be withdrawn.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160417 is withdrawn. Mr. Decker, 160623.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the American Street Industrial Corridor urban renewal area identified by house numbers and street addresses as 1361 Germantown Avenue and 1363 through 65 Germantown Avenue.
Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution 160623 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160728.
A resolution adding Mary L. Oglesby to the street sign on the block intersection of 50th Street and Arch Street in recognition of Miss Mary L. Oglesby's tremendous service and contributions to West Philadelphia community.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160728 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160729.
A resolution commending Mayor Kenny's support and affirmation of Philadelphia's status as a sanctuary city for immigrants and our city's continued support for our immigrant population, whom we are privileged to have as part of our community.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank my colleagues, especially Sanchez, who co-sponsored it and moved for this resolution's adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just briefly,
Chair recognizes.
I'm going to be voting no on it, and I would have voted yes if this were for a hearing to have people come in and clarify a lot of this whole issue.
Okay.
That there's a lot of, even if you could do any research on it, you talk to people, everybody's got a different opinion. And I'll be voting no on it, but I want to, there's some parts of it I agree with, and I would be glad to support hearings on it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. We had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160. You want to be recognized?
Thank you.
Councilman O'Neill, let the record reflect that Councilman O'Neill is voting no on Resolution 160729. Thank you. And
16028, 728, 29.
729, Councilman.
Okay, then I'll be marked as a nay as well. Thank you.
Okay. Let the record reflect that Councilman O will also be voting no on 160729. Thank you. Mr. Decker, 160731.
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority, without consideration, deeds conveying conditional fee, simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the 37th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution 160731 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160743.
A resolution urging the United States federal government to show leadership in the humanitarian crisis in Syria by resettling a greater number of Syrian refugees.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gimm.
Yes, thank you very much to my co-sponsors, Councilwoman Blackwell and David O. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Been moved and properly second. The chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Yes, Mr. President, same remarks as on Councilwoman Blackwell's. This is a tough issue and a lot of different opinions on it, different facts out there. I'm going to be voting no on it, but I would have supported hearings on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. Been moved and properly second. All those in favor of Councilwoman Gimm? Before we take the vote, Councilwoman, Did you need to be recognized again? You're good? Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Councilman O'Neill is voting no. Let the record reflect on 160743. Mr. Decker, 160744.
A resolution calling on the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to support House Bill 2233 of the 2015-16 session, currently before the Committee on Transportation, which amends Title 75 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, further providing for speed timing devices and providing for a pilot program for an automated speed enforcement system on designated highways.
Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
President, I'd like to thank my co-sponsors, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, and Councilwoman Parker, and I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Sure. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much. I first of all did stop by to see Councilman Taubenberger and applaud his actions on behalf of public safety. It's a very serious issue, and I know that all the council members involved are interested in protecting lives first. I do understand that. The issue that I've raised in requesting that this resolution be tabled until after tomorrow, we do have a hearing at 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, I did look at my calendar. I'm not available, but I will be communicating with the bill sponsor, State Representative John Taylor, because as it is right now, whenever a speeding violation issued by the City of Philadelphia or the state police, the city gets 50% of the ticket. And right now for 2016, to date, we've received $219,000. We anticipate probably about $500,000 from those violations. I know this is not about the money, but there is an issue about the money. I think we can have safety and also the revenues that, quite frankly, we've been denied by the state. And we're not getting the money from the state, and there are laws that seem to be coming out of Harrisburg recently that cut into the revenues that we are receiving. I simply would like to raise or notify Philadelphia State Representative John Taylor, who chairs this committee, that our city could really benefit from retaining the 50% of these revenues that we do receive. Quite frankly, they could also be identified in his bill for some specific use around safety in Philadelphia if he chose to do so. I don't think anybody would fault him for that. He is a Philadelphia state legislator. The other thing I would say is that when the radar comes in, it will send a bill to everyone who's going above 11 miles per hour above the speed limit. That's fine. But the projections on the revenues that this radar will produce is unknown. It could be quite high. I think, first of all, we want to try any pilot program that will save lives, save accidents. But at the same time, we have a lot of needs in this city that the denial of state funds is actually hurting. And here is a solution to public safety that does not have to deny the city the revenues that typically come to this city and currently do. So I don't want to set a new precedent here with this bill, and therefore I would ask the sponsor to table it till after tomorrow's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Yes, thank you. And Councilman O, thank you for, your visit to my office. But we've also done some research, and the dollars that are generated by handwritten tickets, speeding tickets in the city of Philadelphia, that 50% you speak of goes back to the First Judicial District, which I can understand. They target with the hearing and enforcement. But also under the legislation that has been proposed, 50% also comes back in the form of a grant from PennDOT for road improvement in the city of Philadelphia. Very similar to the red light camera, which have also on Roosevelt Boulevard and other jurisdictions have been very successful in curtailing accidents and getting people to drive respectfully and accordingly to the laws that have been set up. I believe this is something that's much needed, and when it all comes down to it, it is about safety, and it is a project that actually works, and we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman, did you need to be recognized again?
I'd just simply clarify that the information I received is from PennDOT. This is the money that they list all the jurisdictions in Pennsylvania, and the portion that we've received transferred from the state police since January of this year to June 1st, 2016 is $219,000, $358.02. And that is money that can go to providing for safer streets. I do have an issue with the red light camera, and I think we've discussed that. I have an issue with the fact that there are state laws that specifically require or dictate that the money collected from the streets of Philadelphia go to different silos and not to the city of Philadelphia, and that we are still waiting for the money that was promised to the school district, and we haven't received that. And so, yeah, there is the choice of the state to make a grant to certain entities, but they don't have to do that, and we are denied those funds. So, again, as with other legislation that seems to target Philadelphia and take the revenues that we would otherwise receive to use for public safety and other things, I certainly would like the opportunity for us to communicate to the bill sponsor to seek an amendment before we all vote to support that bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm not getting an indication that the councilman is prepared to hold the resolution, and we have had a motion and a second of that motion, so we will proceed with the vote, if that's okay with my friends and colleagues. The motion on 160-744 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, and let the record reflect that Councilman O voted no on 160-744. Thank you very much. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160-745. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a whole handwriting is a little. 160-747.
A resolution also naming the 1600 block of Hunting Park Avenue as James S. Hall Jr. Drive in honor of the Reverend Dr. James S. Hall Jr., pastor of Triumph Baptist Church, on the occasion of his 65 years of preaching.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I move for the adoption of the resolution, I did want to say, number one, thank you to Minister Barnes and the members of Triumph Baptist Church for coming down today to speak. And also, I wanted to just say publicly what great work Pastor Hall has done in the city of Philadelphia, pastoring here for 65 years, and that's just a tremendous thing. He's one of my spiritual leaders and someone that I lean on for support and guidance, and so it's just really my honor to move for the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it. 160-747 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160-748.
A resolution calling on the city's Department of Prisons, Office of Homeless Services, and the School District of Philadelphia to provide adequate and free feminine hygiene products to women inmates, shelter residents, and students, as they are a vital component for the health, well-being, and full participation of women and girls in our society.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and Resolution 160-748 is adopted. Mr. Decker, 160-525A.
An ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising requirements for preliminary plat approval.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Domb. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gimm. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 160-015A.
An ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Finance, Taxes, and Collections to add a chapter requiring businesses located in certain areas of the city or that receive tax or other subsidies from the city to provide certain economic development data to the city and requiring the publication by the city of such data.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Domb. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gimm. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title, 160-330.
An ordinance amending Section 14503 of the Philadelphia Code entitled NCA Neighborhood Commercial Area Overlay District by amending the subsection entitled East Falls Neighborhood and making related changes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer an amendment to Bill number 160330. A copy of that amendment has been circulated to members of council, and I move for the adoption of the amendment.
The amendment to Bill number 160330 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Bill number 160330 has been amended. It will be on the second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 160277.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land within an area bounded by Indiana Avenue, Palethorpe Street, Cambria Street, and 2nd Street.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Domb. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gimm. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 160-465.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by North Front Street, West Burke Street, North 3rd Street, and West Oxford Street.
This bill has been heard on two separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Blackwell. Councilman Domb. Councilman Green. Councilman Greenlee. Councilwoman Gimm. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez. Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Taubenberger. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 160466.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by North 3rd Street, West Burke Street, North 6th Street, West Master Street, American Street, and Oxford Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Domb, Councilman Green, Councilman Greenlee, Councilwoman Gimm, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Parker, Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Taubenberger, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 160681.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land within an area bounded by Front Street, York Street, Howard Street, and Burke Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Blackwell, Councilman Domb, Councilman Green, Councilman Greenlee, Councilwoman Gimm, Councilman Heenan, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilwoman Parker, Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez, Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Taubenberger, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution recognizing National Drive Electric Week 2016 in the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown.
I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution calling on the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to amend the Act of November 10, 1999, known as the Pennsylvania Construction Code Act, to exempt cities of the first class and further allow 4 cities of the first class to adopt their own construction codes, introduced by Councilman Heenan.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Council Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings examining the life-threatening dangers of synthetic cannabinoids, synthetic opioids, and other designer drugs, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for its adoption.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution proclaiming and designating the day of October 5, 2016 as Men Can Prevent Domestic Violence Day, to encourage residents of all genders to speak out against domestic violence and to increase community awareness and support for the organizations that help survivors of domestic violence rebuild their lives, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like permission to speak on this resolution.
Please,
As a young man, I remember watching television and some of the iconic male figures didn't act responsibly towards women. I remember James Cagney taking a grapefruit and pushing it into a woman's face like it was okay. I even remember Desi smacking Lucy on I Love Lucy like it was okay. And until I got old enough in my teens to see my mother hit by my father, I realized it was not okay. Now, I stepped up. I remember stepping to my father, and he politely put me on my back, but I never felt so proud stepping up on behalf of my mother. So when we start talking about today, men can, it is with a sense of evolution, a sense of how we can be better versions of ourselves that I rise today. What can men do in Men Can? Men can act responsibly. Men can be better examples to their daughters. Men can listen. Men can stop on their impulses. Men can do better. Men can be better brothers. Men can be better examples to their son about what true men do. We have no idea how many times young boys grow up and abuse their own mothers in their own house. It's not cool. So I look forward to being a part of the actual standing up and speaking out. Other men in this chamber have done so. whether we talk about Kenyatta Johnson or my particular male role model, Councilman Greenlee, who has stood up for every issue dealing with women and domestic violence since I've been here. So I ask for the adoption of this resolution, and what we can do as men is do better. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution hereby declaring the week of September 25th through October 1st, Philadelphia Legacy Week, which will be set aside to commemorate those who have made major contributions to the Philadelphia community through their dedication, hard work, and creativity, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing, congratulating, and honoring the outstanding career of Eddie the Underground King Alvarez on being named the new UFC lightweight champion, introduced by Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring the 206th anniversary of Mexico's Independence Day, introduced by Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I'll take this moment to remind folks that the Mexican Consulate is hosting a lunch after council, and we're happy to celebrate with the Art Museum and them, not only today's luncheon, but Sunday's event at Penn's Landing. And with that, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution declaring September 15, 2016 through October 15, 2016 as Hispanic Heritage Month to honor the role that Hispanics have played and continue to play in the economic, cultural, and social development of our nation, introduced by Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Chair one more time recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to take a moment and recognize Mayor Kenny. Over the next few weeks, there's going to be many flag raisings. We're hosting our Puerto Rican flag raising on Monday, and once again, we will feed you if you come out. But it's really important that during this Hispanic month, as I talked about Luisito, that my colleagues take an opportunity and get to learn some of the rich cultures and the diversity within the Latino community here in the city. And I encourage all of you, those of you who come out, I know Councilman Squilla and Councilman O and others come to the Mexican Festival and other events. I can't begin to tell you how important it is for these constituencies to see the leadership participate and learn as they share about their contributions to the city. And with that, I move for its adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Law and Government to hold hearings regarding the Philadelphia 2035 Comprehensive Plan, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities to hold hearings concerning the adequacy, safety, and consistency of SEPTA's CCT system, which provides paratransit services to individuals with disabilities and senior citizens, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our calendar for the day. Are there any speeches on the part of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you, Council President. I just would like to take this time to state that we are, of course, holding the third annual PHL Live Center Stage 2016, a opportunity for anyone in our Philadelphia city or the local region to go online for free and submit their YouTube video of their musical performance in 10 categories. And maybe just like Luis Figueroa, they will be standing on stage because they are not only a great talent being recognized and fulfilling their dreams, but also being a proud Philadelphian and an economic engine for our city. I apologize for the size small shirts, but everyone did get a shirt, a t-shirt. And if it doesn't fit you, I'm sure you have someone who's size small that you could give it to. But more importantly, we have a CD. It's a CD that consists of 14 original songs written and performed by some of the winners of PHL Live, and they range from gospel to hip-hop, to folk music, to rock. And again, these are our local artists. We wish them well. They're an important part of our creative economy and our economic future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. And on the part of the majority, Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, Councilman. I didn't see. Councilman Taubenberger.
Yes, I am part of the minority, and
I'm sorry.
just like to have a word, I don't always push the button.
You've been taking some liberal votes here lately.
I would always defer to council. I just wanted to thank my colleagues for the support of the speed camera resolution, but I also would like to invite them to the State Transportation Committee hearing, which is in these chambers tomorrow at 10 a.m. And it is, after much discussion with a lot of folks, speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard can be a great tool. The speed cameras have worked in many other cities, particularly Washington, D.C., to reduce speeds and car crashes. And I want to thank my colleagues for letting us use the chambers, and a special thanks to Mike Decker for helping to arrange this. And this is an opportunity for anyone who wants to speak on this issue, to want some amendments put in, to be here or send that communication. That is here tomorrow under the leadership of the Chairman, John Taylor, and that is here at 10 a.m. tomorrow to talk about this and take public testimony. Council President, thank you very much for my time.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair now recognizes Councilman Heenan. Speeches on the part of the majority.
Thank you, Council President. I will always be glad to defer to somebody that's going to compliment our chief clerk, because you don't want to upset him when it comes to this body's process. But today, not just myself, but along with other members, co-introduced and co-sponsored a resolution that's calling on the General Assembly to amend the Pennsylvania Construction Code Act to exempt the cities of the first class, which is obviously just the city of Philadelphia and our Commonwealth, and for those cities to adopt their own construction codes. In 1999, the Commonwealth created Pennsylvania Construction Code Act. It used to be called the UCC, and politics interfered with good policies, which now has interfered with our ability for enforcement. And there's a cost to that, and with the kinds of construction and gentrification and the expansion of all our neighborhoods, I think it's important that we attempt to exempt the cities of the first class from that so we can adopt our own codes. Currently, we are, in an attempt to streamline, our uniform building codes across the state. Right? We're trying to fix that, and we could do that if we are simply exempted from that. We are operating off of the 2009 construction code. All right, that means all the codes across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. All right, we are operating because it's uniformed. All right, we are operating off of 2009. The next time we will be able to adopt any kind of code will be 2017. We just went through, you appointed a special committee on demolition. We've had this construction boom. Permits are up. People are going to work. We're looking at KOZ legislations, and we have our code enforcements with old tools. I mean, our code enforcements, our L&I instructors are taking certifications to get up to date in our. Right, we're passing energy codes here at Blundell. Councilwoman, our colleague, Councilwoman Blenda Reynolds-Brown has done amazing work with energy. We have the Committee of Energy, and we can't even enforce our new energy codes. We can't enforce our new fire codes for our first responders and public safety under the 2009 code. I'm stressing this, all right, with a little sense of urgency to ask the state legislature, all right, to understand that Philadelphia is uniquely positioned as a city of a first class and be allowed to be exempt from that so we can adopt, all right, better, safer practices, more energy efficiency practices, And, as we appropriate on these, never-ending cutting budgets as we have over the last decade or so, not to cut our, continue to cut the budgets for L&I and give our first responders or L&I inspectors the tools. Instead of, just imagine this, all right, where we're operating off of 2009 codes. You have inspectors who are being certified, and we have great inspectors who are certified up-to-date codes that are adopted nationally everywhere else and approved by national associations. So they got to go out and, 5 books and know 5 different codes and regulations and energy codes? It makes no sense. All right, so I want to thank this body for its attention, and I'm urging the General Assembly and our governor to please exempt the city of first-class Philadelphia to adopt its own uniform construction code. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Just 2 brief announcements. Well, one, last evening, we had an opportunity to host a Stop the Violence basketball game with members of an organization, actually from your district, Council President, by the name of the Bomb Squad. They brought about 60 or 70 young people from North Philadelphia to South Philadelphia, and it was the North Philly versus South Philly Stop the Violence basketball game, which South Philadelphia won, but nevertheless, we won. But it was a real inspiring and encouraging experience, because in the midst of the shootings that we read every evening on the 11 o'clock news, there are people who are on the ground, who are foot soldiers doing the hard work to address this issue of youth gun violence. And so I want to make sure that we as a body, we as a city continue to keep this as a priority, because I always recognize that in order for us to move forward as one city, everybody progressing, moving forward, we have to make sure we find ways to address the issue of youth gun violence. And for those young men who decide to pick up guns and who do not want to do the right thing based upon their choices, and they have to be dealt with in the appropriate manner. But there are young people and there are community leaders who are out there advocating and fighting the good fight to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe. And so that was a good experience. And last Friday, some council members came down for our annual Peace Not Guns Memorial basketball game. And again, these are organizations that are on the ground doing the hard work to make sure all of us are safe. And so that's where my head is at in terms of making sure our neighborhoods are safe, and continue pushing that agenda aggressively. I'm following up on what Councilman Curtis Jones talked about, acknowledging the Lutheran Settlement House who will be hosting their Men Can Rally, speaking out against domestic violence. That's going to take place on October the 5th. And I thank Councilman Curtis Jones for introducing that resolution as a follow-up. On October the 8th, I'll be hosting my 2nd annual 5K walk run against domestic violence at FDR Park. Councilman Derek Green is also partnering with me. So if any of my colleagues who have an interest in this issue want to sign up a team, please contact my office and come and take a walk for a very important issue. And that's October the 8th at FDR Park, our 2nd annual 5K walk run against domestic violence. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for your continued good work. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank my partners, Reverend Dr. Allan Wallen, the entire Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church family, Future Minds, and State Representative Tanyel Cook Artis, as we all joined together to sponsor the 9th annual College, Vocational, and Labor Information Fair taking place this Saturday, September the 17th at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, located at 2800 West Cheltenham Avenue. When we started organizing this event 9 years ago, we recognize that not every child who is interested, every parent who's raising a child or grandparent who is raising a child has the ability to write a check for tuition. And we also recognize that not all of our young people are interested in attending a traditional college or a university. And that is when we included the vocational and the labor aspect to our fair. We are proud that it has turned out to be one of the largest events that I've hosted in my 10-year career as a member of the Pennsylvania House. The staff has instructed me to say for the record that the scholarship information guide that we distributed will be distributed on a first come, first served basis. So while we start at 11 o'clock, if you make it in the door at 1:59 and we do not have any scholarship books available, please note that they're there on a first come, first served basis. I thank my partners and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Good work. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome.
I wanted to also thank you, Councilman Greenlee, and also Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds-Brown for coming out to our bill signing earlier this week around the nuisance business bill, which we're really excited about because we think that it's going to have a major impact in our neighborhoods, particularly around stop and goes, which are a huge problem throughout the city of Philadelphia, where businesses conduct a number of activities or allow a number of activities to be conducted outside the doors of their property, of their business, and really step back and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, or, you know, I told them to leave and they won't go, and, you know, all sorts of things that basically say there's nothing that they can do about the situation that occurs right outside their doors. But I would say, as I've said before, I'm responsible for what's happening on my sidewalk at my home, as are all of us, and as they are as well. And recognizing that there is a connection between the way you conduct your business and the traffic and activity that is as a result of that business. But one other thing that I just wanted to mention briefly that happened late last week that I don't know if it got as much attention as I would like for it to get is work that was done by the City of Philadelphia's Health Department and its Commissioner Farley, around smoking and the impact of smoking in low-income neighborhoods, and that there's actually action being taken by the Health Department and by the city's Board of Health to address this issue, because Philadelphia has 3,455 active tobacco retailers, more than double the number per capita as Washington, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles. And I think that that's really something that we need to be paying attention to, because these tobacco retailers are much more likely to be into low-income and minority neighborhoods. And so there's been an extensive amount of work that's been done by the Health Department to address this issue, and that tobacco retailers will no longer be able to establish themselves within 500 feet of a K through 12 school, and also retailers who are cited 3 times within 2 years will not be allowed to sell tobacco products for 1 year, which is similar to our nuisance business bill. All of these things combined really go a long way in terms of making sure that we limit access to young people, underage people, to tobacco products, and also that they're not as heavily marketed in our neighborhoods as they are right now. So I just wanted to really commend the Health Department and the City's Board of Health for all their work on this as we continue to work on these nuisance business issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and again, great bill you passed. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. This week, as many of you have probably read in the papers in reference to the rise in income, not only in the city of Philadelphia, but across the Commonwealth and the nation. But poverty is still a major issue in this city. Our president was here in Philadelphia for a rally and talked about poverty as part of his remarks. And sometimes we forget, although poverty is one of our probably #1 issues in the city, that we already have a roadmap to address poverty in our city. And when I talk about the roadmap, we forget about the legacy of Reverend Leon Sullivan. And so it was an honor to be with you, Council President, as well as Councilman O and Senator Kitchen, and State Representative Dwight Evans yesterday for a historical marker that was placed at Progress Plaza, acknowledging the legacy and history of my fraternity brother, Reverend Leon Sullivan, for all the work he has done. And we need to remember and to tell our young people and those around us that we do have a way to address poverty, and it's through economic justice and collectively pulling our resources together. And that's what he did as the Lion of Zion, and it was a pleasure to be there for that event yesterday at Progress Plaza. I also want to remind people and make an announcement regarding an important conference that will be held this Saturday starting at 10 a.m. My good friend Terry Matthews, who is the founder of Jaden's Voice, will be hosting her first annual autism conference, Is It Only Me? And it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Hilton on City Avenue. And one of the good things about this conference, we'll also have a panel of fathers. And recently we learned that was a young man that actually committed suicide who had a child on the autism spectrum. And too often men don't talk about the issues that we deal with as fathers and all the challenges because we hold that information too much inside. So this panel will be on Saturday. There will be a day-long conference, an opportunity to learn more about the issues of autism for those who may be dealing with autism as a parent or a caregiver or a provider, a medical professional or community partner. So I welcome everyone to come out this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the first annual Is It Only Me Autism Conference being hosted by Jaden's Voice at the Hilton on City Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Good information. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kim.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank my colleagues, especially my co-sponsors to Bill number 160015, Council members Jones, Parker, Quinones-Sanchez, and Johnson for helping usher through a way of looking and understanding tax incentives in the city. I think my council member Green mentioned yesterday's study, which I think was also very important. But it's important to also understand that calculating aggregate wealth in the city may not be the same thing as understanding growing economic inequality. And I think that that's an important aspect to track and not just look at things in the aggregate. This bill will actually help us understand and will keep us in national best practices and helping us understand how the tax incentives that we use will actually lead to the kinds of quality jobs that we're talking about, as even beyond the job creation that we celebrate. And I hope that it will advance our public conversation on just economic development for all Philadelphians by helping bring into open the actual impact of the tools that we're using, and maybe help us point our way in more new and innovative directions in the future. So thank you very much to my colleagues for helping me do that and having us do that together. The second thing I wanted to say was I also wanted to thank my colleagues for the amazing turnout that we had on Monday and Tuesday around the Supreme Court Fair Funding Act, fair funding case that went before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I think it was the first time that we've had a chance to put forth this question of whether Pennsylvania is doing its due diligence around fair funding of young people. And the Best of Philadelphia did come together on Monday and Tuesday to stand up for Philadelphia students and students all across the state. And I'm incredibly proud to be a member of a body whose actions have been backed up with our words and our promises that we would do right by young people in the city. But we should also be very conscious that the state put forward a very stark and different argument. One, that education is not a right in Pennsylvania. It is a privilege for some, and that inequity is inevitable and unfixable within the state of Pennsylvania. And in a state where the funding gap between the poorest school districts and the wealthiest school districts is the largest in the nation, it's a reason why it was so important to have this case go before the court, to have all of us work together to bring new justices to the court who can see this argument through fresh eyes, and hopefully we will work together for what justice actually looks like for young people. So thank you very much to my colleagues for all of that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez.
Yes, Council President, thank you. I just wanted to remind folks that along with the Philadelphia Art Museum, as I mentioned earlier, we are celebrating Mexican Independence Day. There is a really good lunch provided by El Rey and after council, and I asked my colleagues to stop by. With us will be the new Consulate General Alicia Kerber Palma, who will be joining us along with the President and CEO of the Art Museum, Gail Harity. They have a wonderful exhibit that's coming up at the museum. Please, as we kick off National Hispanic Month, join us right after council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I wanted to thank Councilwoman Helen Gim for her leadership and activity on fair funding. I do want to emphasize that many times the conversation is fair funding and equity throughout the state. Lower Merion School District versus Philadelphia. However, it is glaringly a problem that in the city of Philadelphia, not another school district, not a wealthy suburb, but in the city of Philadelphia, the disparity between schools, resources, money, quality is criminal. It's a democratic society. A school in one section of our city, a public school, and another public school in another section of our city are starkly different. That has been allowed and permitted to occur under our school district, our Board of Education, for decades, mainly centered around race, but around poverty and lack of influence. And so this issue of equity and fairness and equal opportunity for children to have a good education not only applies between our city and rich suburbs, but right here in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. There being no additional speeches, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rose Brown for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that City Council stand adjourned until Thursday, September 22nd, 2016 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Council stand adjourned until Thursday, September 22nd. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you all very much.